The lock clicked and refused to turn, and for a ridiculous second I laughed like maybe I'd bought a bad battery or sleepwalked into a hardware store nightmare. Then I got closer and saw the tape in the paper with the HOA letterhead saying my home access had been revoked, and the laugh died in my throat. I stood on my own porch, locked out of the place I'd paid for with my hands and my seasons, while someone had the nerve to slap a deadbolt on my door and call it community management. I'm Alex, by the way, and I design secure systems for a living network's access control, the kind of stuff that makes CEOs sleep better. Which is why it took a while for my brain to stop doing inventory and start doing the human math, who has the gall to change the locks on my house while I'm at work. The answer, of course, was the woman with the clipboard, the one who'd rebranded small-town tyranny as civic duty, Karen Whitmore. Queen Karen, neighborhood czar, the person who measured people's lawn decora. She'd been sniffing at my little battery cabinet and my discreet monitoring gear for months. Eyesore, she called it. I called it insurance. Her passive-aggressive letters piled up like autumn leaves, and I'd replied, polite, 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 because I like paperwork in order and arguments on a leash. But the deadbolt now, that was escalation. Someone had gone into my house, ripped out my lock, and installed a cheap metal imposter, taped a fake notice on the door, and expected me to shrug and accept it. I didn't roar. I didn't bang. I sat down at a cafe with my laptop and pulled backups like a surgeon prepping an incision. My cameras, bless the redundancy, had pushed footage to an encrypted server because I'm paranoid in the useful way. And there she was in broad daylight, Karen pointing and directing a guy in a work van as if they were staging a performance. Her voice was crystal through my planner mic. Make it look legal enough so he doesn't have a case. Yeah, make it legal. As if legality were a I could have gone to the police then, but Karen's tactic was always bureaucracy, claim HOA authority, drown someone in forms, and hope they never come up for air. What I wanted was exposure. I did what I always do when the system feels rigged. I documented, I amplified, and I made the evidence impossible to ignore. I called a locksmith to stand by, not to smash anything but to be the neutral witness, and I texted a couple friends in cybersecurity and law. Precision, not revenge. That night she spun her version of the tale, Alex the Menace, violating the visual harmony. Neighbors who'd never met a router they didn't fear nodded at her confidence. But confidence is not proof. Proof is proof. I planted a tiny, unremarkable antenna behind a brick planter, a little device to monitor any attempts to fiddle with the replacement lock, and watched. Karen had taken the surface. She couldn't touch the layers she didn't understand. Redundancies are the quiet things that hum behind chaos. The next morning I walked into the HOA clubhouse with deed in one hand and bylaws in the other, and I laid them out while Karen smirked like this was her coronation. I played the footage. Her face went from floss white to paper thin in 30 seconds. She lunged to shut it off like a person trying to erase a Snapchat confession before anyone sees, and for a moment I thought about finishing it all right there, blow for blow. But slow unraveling is sweeter. Let them watch the threads come loose. I started reading the bylaws like a detective reads a will. One-sided regulation didn't apply to residential, another was misquoted, and the emergency resolution that supposedly allowed a lockout required 3 board votes, which in the HOA's digital archives were suspiciously timestamped to the same second. Identical timestamps who thinks that passes as evidence. Whoever was forging the logs had either never heard of good OPSEC or they thought pride could hide sloppy work. Both are mistakes. The digital trail led to odd email domains created 3 weeks prior. A quick trace and surprise, they mapped back to Karen's IP range. Oops! That's the kind of oops that becomes a problem when you're trying to act like a sovereign of the cul-de-sac. I backed everything up, encrypted it, and dropped a note to Riley, an old college friend who eats fraud reports for breakfast. He agreed to turn my messy folder into a forensic report because frankly it amused him. Meanwhile, I set a honeypot. A fake Wi-Fi named HOA access control, deliberately sloppy, the kind of bait that calls to anyone wanting to take the easy route. Within hours, a tablet from the clubhouse tried to connect and uploaded a script that looked suspiciously like an access override. The tablet's device signature. An older Android quick check registered to the clubhouse. Close enough. They were poking my decoy and they were loud. And then the twist. Simple, stupid, delicious. Karen's own son Dylan sat at the clubhouse desk with that tablet talking on a headset while poring over documents with my name bolded on them. Photographs, audio logs, like somebody assembling a dossier to gaslight a neighborhood, the same family, same operation. It stopped being a conspiracy and started being an organized project of harassment. By then the logs had trapped them in their own net. Dylan downloaded a file I'd baited, and that click triggered a location ping. The IP, the time, the device ID. Everything pointed squarely to the clubhouse. They were doing the work then, trying to make it look like enforcement. The audacity, remove someone's lock, install false paperwork, then claim you did it for everyone's safety. You can smell the hubris from 3 houses over. I printed the honeypot interactions, the video, the altered vote logs, and the chat screenshots. One anonymous tip even included Karen boasting in a group chat about getting rid of the tech nuisance. I assembled it into a press-style packet and scheduled it to land in every inbox on Friday evening at 7 prime time when people unwind and open mail. A single-page flyer went on the community bulletin board that read, "Do you know what your HOA board is really doing?" with a link to the folder. No mob, just... When Friday came, the neighborhood did what neighborhoods do. People read and reacted. Lindsay, the young board member who'd looked bewildered in the clubhouse, texted me, "I didn't vote for anything." Another neighbor left a note at my door with an apology and a pie. The clubhouse phones rang off the hook. Karen's smugness cracked. She clicked through my fake dashboard, unknowingly feeding me timestamps and an audio clip where she said, "We'll say it was a safety threat. That'll shut him up." Her voice, By Monday, Riley had produced a forensic breakdown so clean that it glinted. The domain manipulations were basic. The timestamps faked with an editor that leaves breadcrumbs. The proxy registrations traced back to recovery emails she'd used for coupon apps. Little human mistakes, big consequences. The legal case began to bloom. My lawyer filed a formal complaint. County inspectors quietly visited the clubhouse and found exposed wiring, flammable storage, and a file folder labeled "Emergency Lockout Author." The commune of small cruelties that Karen had stacked, fines, threats, delayed permits started flipping into the daylight. Neighbors admitted they'd been bullied into compliance. The retirement of porch swings, the quiet removal of bird feeders, suddenly people remembered and felt dumb that they'd let it happen. The HOA board voted no confidence. Karen was removed within 48 hours. Her empire evaporated not because a single person wanted revenge, but because truth was assembled and shown plainly. I didn't want to be a leader. I wanted a door that opened for me and for everyone else without fear. The suit I filed wasn't for money. It was strategic to make Discovery dig into phones and receipts to make sure the files couldn't evaporate when a tantrum eased. Discovery pulled more thread. Dylan had used fraudulent credentials to buy surveillance gear on a government discount. There was talk of impersonation of forged documents. The district attorney took notice. In the end, justice wasn't a gavel slamming on a guilty head, so much as the slow rebalancing of the neighborhood's breath. Flower pots returned. Porch swings came back. Mrs. Jenkins retired. Principal fair and fierce became the new board chair, and transparency rules replaced Karen's secret rulebook. People smiled in front yards again. Men and women who'd feared fines for a doormat now spoke over the fence. And me, I put a new feature on my porch, a voice panel with facial recognition that says, "Welcome back, Alex, when I come home." It's a quiet thing, more ceremony than necessity. Pixel curls up on my keyboard. I still check logs, old habits, but the heavy lift is over. The neighborhood is healthier, not because I wanted credit, but because we learned how to document, to demand receipts, to hold the clipboard to the light. There's a lesson in the way this unspooled power is ugly when it goes unexamined, and arrogance is noisy where evidence is quiet. The person who thinks they can make the rules in the dark will eventually trip on their own wiring. That's not wisdom, it's a pattern. Watch for it. So tell me, when someone in your town steps beyond their role and starts rewriting the rules, what would you do? Fight the paperwork, expose the lies, or look the other way and hope it stops? Leave a comment, share a story. This kind of thing happens more than we like to admit. And if enough of us show the receipts, maybe the next Karen doesn't get a second clipboard. If you've ever had an HOA landlord or any person misuse power against you, drop your experience below. Let's talk tactics and keep each other safe. Share this if it strikes a nerve, and if you want a short guide on how to document tampering and protect your digital evidence, say the word and I'll put one together.